Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer, and with me today is Abhinav Pandya. Abhinav, Namaskar and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar. Namaskar. Thank you so much for inviting.
So Abhinav, in 2019, the then education minister, I don't know if he's still the education minister of the central government, very proudly claimed that not one line of any educational material was changed in the first term of the Modi government. And then after that, again, we are seeing some changes here and there, perhaps at state level, but as an overall dialogue, as an overall, narrative, India still is not really telling its children what was the real history of India. How do you think this needs to be changed? Where does change come from? Because there are people who are putting lies into the textbooks just because education happens to be on the concurrent list. And for some reason, the center doesn't want to pull in its weight and say, wait, this is concurrent list. You have to concur with me on what you want to teach. That doesn't seem to happen. So essentially, lies are being told, and India is being destabilized from within through its educational curriculum. That is my read of it. I don't know what you think. Any thoughts on how this can be changed? Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Sree. It's a very, I guess it's the most important question. Okay, first of all, let me put it on record that these people in the government, they are too scared to, temper with these or initiate these relevant and these critical questions. Okay, and I mean, they are obsessed with just nurturing some very cheap kind of loud fighting debates on the primetime national media. Okay, which serves purposes of winning elections and just some creating nuisance. But this is not going to serve any purpose for a long-term narrative building or discourse building. And that is something which is required. And we have to think beyond winning elections and beyond petty politics now to serve the cause of Sanatan, or I wouldn't call it even Sanatan, to serve the cause of humanity, to serve the cause of India. Because history has been tempered with in India for decades, for the last 70 years. We have been fed with lies. Okay, I'll just begin with some very fundamental questions. It's a very detailed and a very long question, very long topic. Certainly we have to begin with changing the syllabus. Before changing the syllabus, we need some good rigorous research projects. So I'll just begin with some very fundamental questions. For instance, we talk about partition. What have we been told? That it's always like in anything in India. Until recently, Taj Mahal was the emblem of India's a symbol. Whoever, for any foreign dignitary, if he or she visited India, they were gifted with Taj Mahal. And in our textbooks, in our in our university discourse, academic discourse, everywhere, India is a secular that country. Okay, but as an analyst, as a political security analyst, as an academician, I ask a very simple question. I'm not getting into politics. I have nothing to do with politics. I ask a very simple question. When we make a statement that India is a secular country, and there's an absolutely zero problem between Hindus and Muslims, are we being factually correct? Now we need evidence for that. Okay, now we just go back to, this problem starts with the destruction of Somnath temple. After the Somnath temple, we had massive massacres during the Sultanate period. Hundreds, millions of Hindus were killed. There have been books written. I don't remember the name of that famous historian who has written about this, Hindu genocide. Okay, then during the Mughal ages later, but all these things were whitewashed. Now coming to the modern Indian history, freedom. So we are told that it was just Muslim League and partition movement was some kind of a fringe movement which started in 1940s, but we are not told anything beyond that. Let me tell you, the partition movement is way more older than the Indian Congress, Indian National Congress or Indian freedom movement. It has much deeper roots. In 1856, there was a riot outside Babri Masjid over this Babri temple. In 1856, there was a riot, and I guess 156 people died in that riot. It was over this Babri Ram temple issue. Then after that, after the 1857, in 1880s, Dr. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, he was talking about Hindus and Muslims constituting two separate nations. He was talking on separatist lines, on these communities being two different communities. 1905 Muslim League was formed, 1906 I guess. Okay, so and Congress was formed in 1882. So we see that there is a parallel. and they grew at the same time in a much more simultaneous and a parallel manner. Okay? RSS was formed in 1925, but the partition movement, it was much older, 1880s. And if you go back, I don't want to go back more into the history, but then you have people like Aurangzeb, Sheikh Ahmad Sir Hindi, who were again talking of a very Sharia-based society, very separatist ideology. Then in 1930s, 1940s, there were massive communal riots in the country, massive communal riots. Gandhiji tried this, non-cooperation movement. In fact, and let me put it on record, we call about, we say that ISIS wanted to bring caliphate system, and whether we agree it or not, we like it or not, and for whatever reasons, good or bad, it was Mr. Gandhi who supported the caliphate movement to restore the caliphate to this Turkish Ottoman Empire in 1919, 1920, which
and then the Mopla riots happened.
Yes, Mopla riots happened, and Mopla riots are mentioned by our historians like Sumit Sarkar in their books that they were the riots, they were the class riots, and they were the riots by peasants against their landlords. So this is the kind of distortion, lies which have been packed into our history. Now imagine, and in 1930s and 40s, you had massive communal riots. Muslim League demanded Pakistan. When the Congress was hesitant, then they started rioting and they said that ladke lenge Pakistan. During partition, we saw massive riots. Okay, after partition, we have this whole history of riots in Assam, Bhagalpur, Gujarat, and in every petty Indian city, you go to a Congress-ruled state or a BJP-ruled state. Everywhere every city you have a major Hindu-Muslim problem. If I am wrong, you can go and talk to any small police daroga or a small station master. Go to Hyderabad, the police commissioner, even if he has been a hardcore Marxist in his entire student life, he'll tell you the same story which I am telling you. So the entire cost-benefit analysis, the logical analysis shows that certainly there have been some problems with that. In case, now imagine a situation, BJP talks about Akhand Bharat, even now they have been, they're very scared to raise relevant questions. They talk about undivided India. Imagine the situation of undivided India. You have Pakistan, you have India, you have Bangladesh all combined. Imagine the number of, Muslim population in this country. And also just a hypothetical situation. Imagine the constitution of our parliament, most of the people from North India, Bangladesh, Northern India and Pakistan, all these, member of parliaments would have been from the minority community. And imagine the number of communal riots that would have taken place. If you look at this, I certainly would say that, Jinnah had a much stronger point. Well, I'm not praising him, he was a communal leader, whatever, he had his entire politics based on political separatism. But when he was saying that there are problems between these two communities and there is a problem of massive rioting, this religious hatred, at some point he was right. And even the entire dispute between India and Pakistan, somewhere it gets boiled down to this problem of religious extremism only. You see in Kerala, be it in Kashmir, Imagine a situation if partition had taken place in letter and spirit with the complete transfer of population. I'm just, I'm going back into history like a historian, because Muslim League started rioting because they were scared that these people, because they were too scared that after the independence, it will be a Hindu majority nation and all the Muslim elites, we will lose our power. We have ruled this country for about 800 years and we will be living like second-rate citizens. Those were the fears in their minds. And those fears, those fears had a reason. The entire Muslim rule, the Mughal rule was severely crushed by the Maratha army, the Maratha rulers. So they had those things in mind that, this is the country where the local people, the Hindus they have put up a strong resistance over the last 1,000 years. And if they have their rule, certainly, our Sharia dominated society, our way of living of, this religious extremism will not survive. That's why they wanted a separate country. And when they feared that the Congress leadership is totally against,
One question, see, yes. Population exchange would have been possible. Then you could have also had a side clause there saying that those of you who don't think you can have this can always take the way out and go and settle in France and England. That's what Aga Khan ended up doing. That's what most of the really rich people have ended up doing. The Nizam's surviving dynasty is the biggest sheep farmer in Australia. Wafak kam ja.
Yes.
Right? They did that anyway. So they could have, said that, okay, you don't want to live in this thing where you think that you have been, marginalized. You can take your money and go in any other, stay in any other British colony. This could have been done. That is my limited point. Please continue.
No, I mean, I certainly agree. And it could have been done because they had feared that the Congress is not going to accept our demands of a separate Pakistan. Now what to do? Start ladke lenge Pakistan. Ladke lenge.
I thought it was Huske lenge Pakistan. I thought there was Husk.
That came later. It was Ladke Lenge, Mukti, Deliverance Day and Ladke Lenge, something like that. It came later. Okay. There was a massive rioting. Okay. Now imagine a situation in which, especially the Congress leadership had realized this. They had understood that no, seriously, there are problems. We may have many moral platitudes. Gandhiji must be a very moral man in life. I mean, he likes religious diversity. You can, you have you're free to like anything. But then there is a certain reality around you, which you have to accept in the interest of the greater good. If you don't accept, it leads to bloodshed and violence, for which ultimately you will be responsible if you don't accept that. So given these considerations, if they had been little more sensitive towards Jinnah's mindset, towards Jinnah's demands, and okay, fine, let us sit on the table. You want a separate country, okay, a separate republic or whatever. Let's decide how to do it, how to execute it, okay. If the partition has to be based on religious identity, then let us find a mechanism, and that would have been a very, serious and a very nice exercise. It could have been done very amicably. They could have established a Ministry of Partition Affairs in both the countries, with a 10-year mandate for complete transfer of population, and that too with the compensation. It could have been done in a very peaceful manner. And if that had been done, imagine what we would have gained. All the lives lost in communal rights after the partition or during the partition would have been saved. Okay? Or to a large part of them would have been saved. Secondly, the amount of money which we spend on our security to control terrorism, Kashmir, whatever, we would have, made a huge dent in that. And, we would have been much safer from within.
Okay, so let's deal with reality today. Today, yes. India has a trouble even taking out the word secular that was forcibly inserted in its constitution in 1975, 75, 76, during emergency. Let me put it that way. That way I'm factually right. I don't want people commenting that you got the date wrong or the year wrong. During emergency, the word secular got inserted. That hasn't been taken out. You have to express intent. That has not even been done. Again, Abhinav, we are running away with this and that. I just want to kind of keep the focus back on this discussion. Narrative, let us say 3 things that India needs to do, especially at the center. They have to direct the states to say these points are non-negotiable. These subjects, history. History is history. You can't change it. You know what they have done in Tamil Nadu? They said that Periyar got something about Socrates of the Orient or something. No, Socrates of Southeast Asia, awarded by UNESCO. Turns out it is like Ulhasnagar Sindhi Association going off as USA. It was some nondescript, some small district level association that gave him the pride. And it took years to take it out of the textbooks. Only recently it was removed. And I bet you these new lumpens that have come as rulers in Tamil Nadu will do their damnedest to put it back in. In fact, there's a proposal to pay 4,000 rupees a month to every Sri Lankan refugee that is sitting in Tamil Nadu today. They are all waiting for their houses to be reconstructed so they can go back to their houses. This is the plan that India is doing. They have repatriated many people. There are a few thousand still in refugee camp, and they are waiting for their houses to be built in Yarpanam, which is Jaffna, so that they can go back there. Everything is peaceful now. So my point here is, let us say 3 things that the center has to do. I don't have any faith in the state governments because even the low level of achievements that the central government has done, the state governments can't even do that. They cannot compete on competence. So let's leave it at that. These people can only keep stoking fears and pandering and trying to steal elections, one way or intellectually or whatever you want to call it. But let us try and see if the center listens to us. Let us say 3 things that they need to do. 3 subjects that is non-negotiable. Can we say that sciences, because that is fact-based? History, again, history is itihasa. That's what happened. We're not talking about mythology. We're talking about itihasa. Couple more things that you can think of.
Well, I feel that first and foremost, they need to get confidence. They need to get confidence. I mean, well, when we talk about secularism, certainly, European version or the European definition of secularism is not applicable to us, because we have a much, much longer and a much richer tradition of, statecraft, polity. Our social, cultural systems have been different. So they need to have that courage to stand up and say, hey, we don't agree to the definitions and norms and standards set by you. Let us decide. That's what China has done. For them, their Confucian values are very important. Okay? Even Singapore has been very firm in that. Okay? So our conditions are different. They need to get up and have that confidence. Second, they need a very rigorous research with people who are skilled, competent, and they have the right mind and the right approach. If they get the people who are experts, who are very intelligent, skilled, but if they have a preoccupation, or if they have an inherent hatred against Sanatan, hatred against our traditions, then it's not going to serve any purpose. So they need to find honest people who can do research into our classics. Maybe it is Ramayana, Mahabharata, archaeology, the Gupta period, the Mughal period. Even before that, the developments which took place in Indian sciences. There is a lot to talk about Sree. The theory of like we talk about things like this about this Gauraksha and all, which is fine, okay, but we have a very strong tradition in science. Nagarjuna, the Buddhist monk, he invented, he is credited with the discovery of mercury. And Dhanvantari, the Ayurveda, Charak Samhita, it describes 300 instruments for your surgical exercise,
Plastic surgery, right.
Surgical operations, And when Nagarjuna is asked, or Dhanvantari is asked, how do you come up with such information, and they are very fact-based information. He said that, well, I did my research, and also I got, some kind of intuitive guidance from, during my meditation or whatever. So we had a different knowledge tradition which requires rigorous research. So I guess, these are the things where they certainly need to do a lot of work, and especially, and again, in the narrative domain, this against Islamism, they have to clearly define, what are the threats, and how we have to perceive our threats. So for that, they need to cultivate an indigenous, a strategic understanding or strategic consciousness which is rooted in our systems. Go back to Rama and Krishna. Just see, imagine Rama was a great man. He was an embodiment of dharma. He left his home, went to forest, but he never abandoned his, this Dhanush and bow. Okay? He said that when you are dealing with demons, when you are dealing with, evil forces, you have to use violence. So we have a very different system. We have to learn from our ideals, and not just treat them as mythological, figures. That's it. Okay, Little more research is required. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you very much, Abhinav. Very, very thoughtful, food for thought points here that we have brought up. And I think it is important now that the Indian government start looking at taking its share of responsibility to make sure that the right kind of knowledge is imparted in the textbooks of various states. And with this, we'll bring this part of the discussion to a conclusion. As always, a pleasure to have you on our channel. Viewers, don't forget to click on the bell button or subscribe, and also consider joining our membership, because we are going to come up with some members only programs. A few programs will be members only, and that is being planned, and it will be available shortly. As always, a pleasure having you. Namaskar.
Thank you very much. Namaskar.